GoForThe2.com. We're into the Week 12 predictions for the college football season. Another amazing weekend of college football. I can't wait. So let's talk about it right now. Florida State and Miami. Florida State, rivalry game. They won 4 straight against the Hurricanes, but Miami is very solid at home. They're 5-0, haven't lost a game, and play much better at home than they do on the road. You look at their last 3 games against Cincinnati, Virginia Tech, and North Carolina. Offensively and defensively, gelling and hitting on all cylinders. Miami should be well rested for this game. They're coming off a bye week. You look at their quarterback, Brad Kaaya, over the last 3 games, 7 touchdowns, no INTs. Miami only giving up 180 passing yards per game. That matches up very well against the Florida State aerial attack of Jameis Winston and Rashad Green. Miami matches up very well defensively in run support as well. They're only giving up 131 rushing yards per game, but at home that number dips down to 55 rushing yards per game. You look at Florida State, very one-dimensional. They're ranked 104th in the nation in rushing offense at 129 yards per game. You look at Miami's offense. They have a home run hitter in Duke Johnson, 7.7 yards per carry. You look at Philip Dorsett at the wide receiver position. 19 receptions, 572 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's averaging 30 yards per catch. Look for Al Golden and their offensive staff to utilize Dorsett down the field to stretch out a Florida State secondary that's given up 237 passing yards per game. But more importantly, that number on the road jumps up to 289 passing yards per game. I like Miami in this matchup. To me, Florida State, not the same defense that we saw last year. They're -1 in turnover margin as a team overall. In order to get the victory on the road, you need to create turnovers, and I like the defense led by Denzel Perryman and Dallas Crawford. I like this defense. Miami strikes the upset 31-24 to snap Florida State's 4-game winning streak. Another important game within the SEC is Georgia and Auburn. Auburn travels to Athens. They've lost the last 3 games there by an average margin of defeat of 23 points per game. Georgia needs this game if it has any opportunity to make it to the SEC championship game should Missouri drop a game down the stretch. They get Todd Gurley back, but you saw what Hudson Mason was able to do last week on the road in Lexington. 4 touchdown passes, no INTs. He utilized his wide receiver, Chris Conley, Michael Bennett, Malcolm Mitchell, and Jeb Blazevich got involved in the offense, and Georgia was very balanced passing and rushing last weekend. They have Sony Michel back, which should help the aerial attack as well. Nick Chubb and Todd Gurley, a dominant 1-2 punch. Look for Georgia to have fresh legs in the ballgame at all times. And more importantly, you look at Auburn. Auburn will be without their big play wide receiver Williams, who injured a knee. That will allow Georgia to double-team Sammy Coates and put a lot of pressure on Nick Marshall and the Auburn offensive line. Look for Marlon Herrera and Jenkins to create pressure along with Floyd, and I think Georgia gets a dominant home victory over the Auburn Tigers this weekend. Let's talk about the marquee matchup in Tuscaloosa. Alabama, Mississippi State. Miss State has lost 6 straight to Alabama by an average margin of defeat of 22 points per game. Has not even been close. But when you look at this matchup, Alabama, last 2 games against LSU and Tennessee, rushing defense. They gave up 183 rushing yards to the LSU Tigers. They gave up 181 rushing yards 3 weeks ago to Tennessee and Joshua Dobbs. But more importantly, they had problems covering Joshua Dobbs in the defense. Dak Prescott, a more dynamic quarterback, 18 touchdown passes, 11 touchdown runs. And you look at this Miss State offense, very balanced. 267 passing yards, 254 rushing yards per game. Very balanced in passing and rushing. I think that's the difference. You look at Preston Smith on the defensive front for Mississippi State. They can create pressure, 32 sacks through 9 games. I like this Mississippi State defense, especially if they jump out early. Miss State gets the upset 30-27 over Alabama and maintains the #1 ranking in the nation with a solid road victory over the Crimson Tide. One more game that's very interesting. Arizona State travels to Corvallis to take on Oregon State. Interesting matchup. Oregon State has not looked good. Dropped the game last week to Washington State. Arizona State, though, coming off a tough 3-game stretch. I think they get the victory, but I think it's very, very close. Look for Sean Mannion to attack that ASU secondary. You saw what Everett Golson was able to do in Tempe last weekend, late in that game in terms of passing. If it wasn't for the turnovers, Notre Dame would have been in a position to get the upset, but they could not do it. Arizona State pulled away in the end. Look for Oregon State to challenge Arizona State. In the end, though, Arizona State gets a 3-point victory. Another interesting matchup is Clemson-Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech can run the football. They're very opportunistic on defense, but they're giving up 237 passing yards per game. Not solid in the secondary. That benefits Clemson in this matchup. I know Cole Stout's at the quarterback position. He's not as good as Deshaun Watson, but they have the speed on the outside to challenge Georgia Tech vertically, and their defense, led by Vic Beasley, is dominant and very solid in run support. I expect Clemson to get a decisive road victory over Georgia Tech. Clemson's a much better defense than Georgia Tech has faced over the last few weeks, and I think Clemson matches up very well with Georgia Tech to get the victory on Saturday. Stay with me all season long at GoForThe2.com.